Well, it was in 1975 when I first met Srila Prabhupada. I'd gone to Chicago on business a few months before. I think it was in May. I was there on business. And I'd been reading Prabhupada's books for over a year and chanting and started to follow. I lived in Tennessee and I got Prabhupada's books in Tennessee from a devotee. And so I wanted to find the devotees and I wanted to find Prabhupada. So I started to visit the Chicago temple when I would go to Chicago on business. And so went to the old Evanston temple. It was in May of 1975 and they said, Prabhupada's going to be here for Rath Yatra in July. And I thought, oh, that's very wonderful. I'll have to come back. So I made a point to be in Evanston when Prabhupada arrived. And so I was in the temple room when Prabhupada came in. Actually just in this little hallway when he came in the front door. And so when Prabhupada came in, I didn't know exactly what to expect. I'd never seen him before, lots of pictures, back to Godhead and whatever, but had never actually seen Prabhupada. And so I was all ready to pay my obeisances, because that's what you do when you see Prabhupada. But Prabhupada walked in the front door and he walked up these little like 4 or 5 steps, and people threw some flower petals in his way. And he started to walk past, and I just was so amazed at seeing Prabhupada that I just was stunned. I didn't pay obeisance. Everyone else was on the floor, and I was just engrossed in watching Prabhupada walk by. So, and then after he walked by, I paid my obeisances and followed him on into the temple room. So I was pretty amazed to see Srila Prabhupada. I felt like, so this is you. You're the one that's been talking to me in Bhagavad-gita. And immediately it all worked. You know, sometimes if you see somebody, maybe an author, and you think, well, you don't look like the guy that would write the mystery or whatever. But Prabhupada looked the part of the voice that was speaking to me in Bhagavad-gita. So I was very amazed to see Srila Prabhupada. He was going to give a lecture. They had asked Prabhupada to give a lecture at the Hindu Center there, one of the few Hindu centers in America in 1975. And so Prabhupada was going to go over and give a lecture in Hindi. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj wanted a few devotees to come along with him. Not the whole crowd, that wouldn't work, and somehow or other, my wife and I at the time were asked, would you come along? You'd be part of the devotees that come. And Prabhupada's just going to give a talk in Hindi, and so you just be there. And I said, oh, very wonderful, very nice. And so we all arrived at the Hindu Center early, and Prabhupada showed up. And then we were all paying obeisances, and Prabhupada was trying, of course we were, sometimes we were so excited in those days we didn't really use our heads properly. We didn't leave a path for Prabhupada to walk through the bodies that were laying on the floor. So Prabhupada came in the temple, and the rest of the Hindus, the Indians, they were standing. But then when he got to his devotees, we were all paying obeisances, and unfortunately there was no way for him. So he had to kind of tiptoe through the group. And so I was one of the people that he almost stepped on it to get through. So he sat down on the Vyasa-san, and he started to give this lecture in Hindi. And behind there was a lot of talk and noise, chastising of children, and children shrieking occasionally. In other words, this is a social event for the local Hindu community. And there was a Swami there, but they didn't really stop there. They're talking, and you could hear ladies in the background and gentlemen over here talking, and an occasional child chasing another one in the back. And so after a couple of minutes of this, Prabhupada stopped. And he looked around at everyone in the back of the room, and we were all up front. Then he looked at us, and he started this lecture in English. He's just switched over into English instead of, it seemed like, I've come here for you. But they are so interested, and they don't understand. So he was giving a lecture to them and for their benefit. So he just shifted. and gave the lecture to us. And I just thought that was so, it was so nice to be there for him, because they weren't going to pay much attention to him. He shifted to his children. And I remember one class where Prabhupada was saying, of course, there were days there when I didn't feel very well, because some of us, a lot of us got sick, you know. And I was feeling particularly ill that day, but I was in class and trying to listen to Prabhupada's words and stay awake. And then I hear Prabhupada say, if one has chanted this Maha Mantra sincerely one time, then he is not long for this world. Meaning that probably this birth, if not very soon, we're out of here, we're finished. And he went on to explain like that just one time is all it takes. So here we are chanting 16 rounds a day and so much kirtan. So Prabhupada, I realized what you've done is you've just thrown us in this ocean of Krishna consciousness, where really just a drop is all it really takes. But Prabhupada was inundating us with so much Krishna consciousness. It was concentrated Krishna consciousness. You know, he wanted us to have the ISKCON sandwich, the morning program, full day of service, and an evening program. He's just constant. And a lot of it, I'm sure, was because we were extremely contaminated. We needed to be purified. But that struck me, that's all it really takes, and yet you're giving us so much of yourself. He would go all through the day, sleep hardly at all at night. And here I'm sick. I was at the time in my 20s, and yet I knew Prabhupada was sick because he was sneezing, and I could tell he didn't feel very well, and there was mucus. I'm sure he felt worse than I did, but he's there giving class, and I'm there trying to stay awake. And I realized that, you know, out of your kindness and your love, you're giving us everything. You're not holding back anything. You're giving us this ocean of Krishna consciousness, when, as he said, only a few drops is all it would take. Je anilo premadana koruna prachu